The Newcastle show is a long way from the Cessnock Corrective Centre, and there's one display there its creator won't get to see in place. This mural for the Heart Foundation is designed to encourage healthy living, particularly for children, to ensure they get a good start to life. The mural is more than 6 metres long and 2 metres high. Convicted bank robber Tim Guider worked for a week to have the piece ready in time for the show.
No, I painted all day and each night up until about 10 o'clock, and then I was locked in my cell and continued the next day.
Tim was sentenced to a 14-year prison term, but expects his sentence to be reduced. So far, he's been in prison for 4.5 years, and despite his confinement, his talents have been seen far and wide. He's currently working on this piece called Innocence and the Beast. When it's finished, it will depict a child walking into a city scene. He's also done work for Long Bay Jail, where he was before coming to Cessnock, and the Sydney City Mission.
I give these murals away. I've given one to the Sydney City Mission, and I want to give this one to another charity. And I find by doing that helps me to, it brings out the best ideas in me. And instead, if I was doing it for myself, then I find it much harder to get good ideas.
How did you start painting?
I could always paint when I was a child, and at school I was discouraged so that I'd study, and when I left school I ended up coming to prison, and in prison I found that I had the time to begin painting seriously. So 13 years ago I began painting daily.
Tim hopes to eventually make money painting portraits. In the meantime, he's happy with his art as a pastime.
I can express myself through it, and it's an escape of freedom for me while I'm in prison.
I believe we can do better than having trial games and risking high-priced and talented professionals in games that really don't mean much to them.
Trial games are a necessity. I mean, how does a team, any sort of team, rugby league team, tennis team, golf team, improve or get to their peak performance without trialling themselves? There's nothing like match play to get your match fit.
Final preparations were made today at the Broadmeadow ground for Sunday's clash. Publicity officer Lee Morn said there are at least 25 players in contention for first grade this year, and this weekend they'll get a chance to impress coach Alan McMahon.
Go out and throw the ball about will be Alan's idea, and find out what abilities we have brought into the club. The new boys, I think, will be given free rein to show their goods, if you like, their wares. Alan wants to see what he's got.
One player of particular interest will be 24-year-old ex-Great Britain international Des Floyd. Still suffering from jet lag after his long trip from the Oldham club in England, Des said he is impressed with tonight's ground and facilities. The centre hasn't played for more than 5 months. He says he'll handle the Sydney competition as he served a tough apprenticeship in England.
I'd say the game in England's probably not as soft as some Australians think it is. You know, I mean, it isn't as fast and it isn't as hard, and the conditions aren't as hard. But it's still, you know, it's a tough game.
So you're going to give those Parramatta fellas a run?
Final touches were being added to the site today in time for the competition, which gets underway in the morning. And the skiers from the United States, England, Sweden, New Zealand and Australia were going through their final preparations for Auski 89. Slalom is a new event to Auski, and one which is bound to create a lot of interest. As the skiers practice this discipline, last year's Pro Jump champion Jeff Carrington pondered the chances of a repeat performance.
It's great to be back in Raymond Terrace. It's a great area down here, and about my performance last year, I'd certainly like to repeat that. That was one of my best tournaments of the whole year, so I was quite happy.
Mick Neville will throw down the gauntlet to many of the fancied skiers, but he also thinks that one of the new breed of Aussie skiers could cause an upset.
There is a lot of younger skiers in Australia at the moment who are, you know, approaching the sort of world-class level, and a tournament like this gives them a great chance to, you know, show how they've improved and show what they can do.
Mick's wife Karen will start favourite for the women's jump event and also the slalom, but she will be hard-pressed by Lisa Simoneau of the US and a top group of Australian girls.
In the slalom event, you're going to have to start favourite there. Who do you see as your nearest rivals?
Tony Kirby and Lynn Neville. Really just probably the pair of them. Tony's a little bit inconsistent, but if she has a good run, she will have a very good run. So she actually skied well this morning in practice. She was half a buoy in front of me, so she's my toughest one.
Fifteen of the missing are from a Singapore cargo vessel, Anna Leonhardt, which sank in the Bay of Biscay. 5 of those killed in Spain were from the eastern city of Valencia, where winds of up to 100 kilometres per hour uprooted trees and dislodged roof tiles. Icy winds and rain swept the coast. The Royal Netherlands Meteorological Institute said its barometer fell to 957 millibars, the lowest since records began 283 years ago.
It's widely known that the William IV is $400,000 in debt, and approaches to councils in the area to help have been turned down. Mr Campbell was appointed in October and says now the festive and holiday seasons are over, it's time for the community to act to keep the vessel here. And that help is being sought far wider than just the paid-up members or shipmates.
Now, not for a moment am I expecting to raise $440,000 from the shipmates, but I think that if they are demonstrating the ability and preparedness to contribute a substantial amount, then I'm sure that's when we will get the backup of council. That's when for sure we will get good industry response and major sponsorship, including that from creditors and financiers.
Among new arrangements for running the vessel revealed today were better training for crews with a view to conserving machinery, concentrating use over just 2 weekends a month or for specially arranged excursions, and a membership and funding drive. A recent raffle raised $7,000 and brought a Qantas trip to Hawaii for Linda Rigby of Stockton, who received a ticket today. Mr Campbell emphasised that a decision to sell the vessel had not been made, and his objective is to have it operate in Newcastle. Selling William IV would only be a last resort.
Dr Beth Jane, chairman of the New South Wales faculty, will be explaining the new package to Hunter GPs tonight. This afternoon she said that not only will GPs become better qualified, but they will also spend more quality time with their patients.
They will be probably increased, but some consultations will in fact be decreased, but the majority will be increased.
What are the problems that led to this package of proposals?
Well, the problem of the schedule as it is at the present time is that it encourages the doctor who has to be, of course, interested in his income or her income to some extent, because we all have to live, but the more quickly you can get your patients through, the more income you make. Now, that's not desirable general practice as far as the college is concerned.
Definitely nobody in there?
No, it's never in there, no. No one was trapped, but 5 people in the top floor flat were very nearly killed. Lynette Walters and her family noticed cracks spreading over the ceiling. In an instant, they fled down the back stairs, a reaction that at the very least saved them serious injury.
Oh, real lucky, very lucky, because it was coming down with us when we were coming down the stairs. There wasn't any time. If we would have been in the lounge room, we wouldn't have got out of it.
Kilometres northwest of Melbourne. A Bell Long Ranger helicopter owned by the Bob Jane Corporation on chartered off lines and plunged into an adjacent film company with 3 people aboard was preparing to shoot a film of a new Honda motor car. When it clipped past to the Austin, the 2 others from the Bureau of Air Safety, investigator John Sonneveld was quickly on the scene inspecting the wreckage.
Miscellaneous Workers Union, 35-year-old Martin Ferguson is barely known to the wider community, but in Labor circles the Ferguson name is big. Unlike the smooth-talking, slick-dressing Simon Crean, the man destined to follow him into the Labor movement's top job projects a more orthodox image of a union official.
In excess, the Australian band has wooed the world, and guitarist Tim Farriss doesn't mind admitting he's a millionaire. At 31, Farriss may well have what he needs: a house on Sydney's North Shore, another at Shoal Bay, and a 10.5-metre cruiser worth $250,000. The latter is helping him unwind this week at Port Stephens, where he's game fishing. While far removed from touring with a rock group, he says there are similarities.
There's a lot of similarity there, you know. I've found between working in a band and working with a crew on a boat. You know, you travel long distances together. You end up in really tense situations together, and there's real feeling of camaraderie.
At Port Stephens, Farriss is also making a 5-minute pilot for a 1-hour documentary he plans to co-produce and direct. He says the project will combine rock and game fishing. He loves both. So could you choose between the two?
Oh, very easily. I'd take fishing. No, I would never be in a situation where I'd have to choose between the two, and if I am, obviously the band's my first priority.
After 12 years on the road, such priorities are undoubtedly helping Tim Farriss now enjoy life on the high seas. Belinda Borissow, NBN News.
Last week, Alderman Carley was evicted from a fiery committee meeting by Lake Macquarie Mayor Alderman Ivan Welsh. Alderman Welsh claimed Alderman Carley was out of order during a dispute with the chairman, Alderman Tussis, stating he would not be allowed back onto council until he apologised. Alderman Carley refused last week and again last night when he arrived at the meeting. Alderman Welsh demanded he leave, sparking a debate amongst council. At its end, Alderman Carley again said he would not apologise and prepared to leave the chamber. But in an about-face, the mayor asked him to resume his place. The issue will be discussed next week, for which the full transcript of the fiery meeting in question will be produced.
truck gained speed, but fortunately its acceleration was slowed by a concrete wall in front of number 127. It continued its rampage and crashed into his Mr. and Mrs. Tasker's front bedroom. Gordon Tasker was asleep inside the room and narrowly missed by the sharp tray. His wife Mary had been asleep in the other room and thought a brick had been thrown through a window. An investigation into the mishap is underway.
Telethon runs from 8:30 tonight until 8:30 Saturday night with no commercial breaks. In all, around 3,000 people will be involved, taking donations at the front of NBN, recording pledges in the phone room, appearing on the panel or working behind the scenes. Managing the daunting logistics was the task of Ricky Blackwell, veteran of 9 telethons.
It's the best organised chaos you've seen for a long time now. We're fine, everything is going well, just putting the last, the icing on top of the cake, and we'll be ready to go at 8:30.
24 hours of live television seems like it could get boring. Is it likely to?
If you've ever seen a telethon before by NBN, you know it is. In fact, this time we've got even more artists, so many more, and it's just going to be fun, right from the beginning to the end.
The telethon has been 12 months in the organising, and the hard work of preparing the sets and cameras has been going on for weeks. Today it was a case of adding the decorations, the all-important pledge phone numbers, and stocking up on food and drink for the many volunteers. Telethon 87 raised $1.2 million. This year, donations will go towards establishing a melanoma unit in the Hunter and a hospice for palliative care. NBN manager James Mark Anthony says this year's mood is optimistic, but is reluctant to predict a total.
I guess that it's very difficult to put a target on telethon. I mean, how do you actually target what the community is prepared to give? I guess that the community, the people out there, evaluate exactly what they're prepared to give, and at the end of the day we end up with a figure. So we don't put a target on the generosity of the people.
The community has thrown itself behind the event. 2NC will broadcast its breakfast show from the studio. The new Gables night spot in the Hunter Mall has timed its opening to coincide. A donation will be given for drinks sold. The brewery is offering to match donations from its patrons, and a large amount is expected to be raised by the Telethon Handicap to be run at Broadmeadow tomorrow. Getting in early today were the students of Cardiff South Public School. The primary children donated coins in an attempt to form a mile of money. Not to be outdone, the infant students also made their contributions. The target this time to outline the playground octopus.
The murky spill was first discovered by nearby factory employees a few weeks ago. As a regular occurrence, cloudy water appeared in Throsby Creek near the Chinchin Street Bridge. When we tried to find the source of the spill, the stream had already carried much of the white water towards Newcastle Harbour, where it begins its dilution and then simply disappears.
About once or twice a week it gets poured into the drain at low tide. We've only noticed low tide.
What's the drain like on high tide?
Oh, we can't. Sometimes it's clear, sometimes it's dirty.
Spills of different colours have been seen. Last week it was a dirty brown. Later this afternoon, the Hunter District Water Board confirmed today's spill was paint, and a notice has been served on a company which is now under investigation. The board believes today's spill followed a paint drum being damaged by a forklift.
it's been a very busy time. It's worth pointing out in this regard that throughout all this, the Vice-Chancellor has made no move to call...
Julie McLaughlin has vowed to take her fight for reinstatement as student coordinator for Year 8 at St Pius X all the way to the Anti-Discrimination Board if need be.
I'm prepared to go all the way. If it includes going to the Anti-Discrimination Board, the Industrial Commission, then I'm prepared to go. And
do you think you could come out the victor?
I'm certainly hoping so.
Today's angry meeting of Newcastle's Catholic teachers heard Julie was married for the second time last July, but wasn't told of the school board's disapproval until December, when she applied to be reinstated as coordinator. Then she said she was told her performance had been faultless, but there were some aspects of her private life that were unsuitable for her to set an example to the students. So her application had been refused. What the board didn't like was that Julie had failed to have her first marriage annulled, so the church had effectively not recognised her second. When she applied again in January, and again was refused despite being the only applicant, it meant for her a pay cut, a demotion and no future career advancement. So Julie decided to get tough, and she says she has support from her colleagues ready and waiting.
I've had my staff support from the very beginning, from my first application to my second application and through until now. I've had unanimous support from my own staff. It's only now that we're asking for support from other schools.
Has there been any reaction from the students at all?
Yes, in fact the students are quite supportive. Today during school I had students who came up and said that they wish me all the best today.
The mood at today's meeting was decidedly angry, with all the teachers involved supportive of the calls to condemn the Chief Executive Officer at St Pius X, demand Julie's immediate reinstatement, and if not, then follow that up with immediate industrial action.
Bill began his collection 25 years ago, and samples have grown to nearly 4,500. Working on a limited budget and in his spare time has made this Newcastle Tech teacher inventive and resourceful. He uses shirt boxes to display the wools, adding naphthalene to keep away wool's worst enemy, the moth. The samples from all over the world are an invaluable teaching aid, for students can actually see the effects of sickness or lice, and sometimes more unusual additions to the bales.
Rats are pretty common. You'll notice one of the samples up there has a mouse in it with its nest, rather dehydrated. We have a very much dehydrated frog. We have bits and pieces of shearing gear, poison wheat, cigarette butts, milk cartons, a beanie, wool too by the way, a shearing handpiece and various other bits and pieces.
To the students who later find work in shearing sheds, government institutions and on sheep properties, the collection is priceless. And could you put a value on your collection?
No, I couldn't, because it means more to me than money.